So I got this video recommended to me about this guy talking about why he thought Pewdiepie having a kid in Japan was a bad idea. Because the kid was white, therefore he wouldn't be Japanese, and he brought up some points. Now, as someone who's half Korean and half white and grew up in Japan at a young age, I want to talk about this video because I'm basically the demographic that he's talking about. You know, two foreign parents coming into Japan and having a child there. I'm that demographic he's talking about, so I want to talk about it simply because I'm kind of like, I guess, a case study example of this, and to basically show that what he's saying is wrong. Okay, so first he talks about how this kid is gonna have a identity crisis because, well, he's in Japan, but he's not Japanese. And how kids are gonna make fun of him because he's not Japanese, right? Because he won't fit in. But I would disagree with that. I never got to made fun of when I was living there. And even though he claims, oh, kids always make fun of me when I was in England and I was Asian, you gotta realize that this is a different day and age. People don't make fun of each other like they used to do back when you were a kid. I would never get made fun of for being white. No, it's quite the opposite. People are like, kind of like, wow, you're American, you know? Like, I was still friends with a lot of them. I didn't never felt like an outsider, in my opinion. It would mostly be stuff like, if I went to America during winter break, they'll be like, oh, what is it like there? You know, they would be like, oh, you could speak English? That's so cool. Stuff like that. It was never like, you're white, you can't be with us. I never faced that. Usually, like, discrimination like that among kids happens when the kid comes like during the second grade or something and no one knows who it is. But if you come in during the first grade where like everyone's new, you fit in perfectly fine, and that's most likely gonna be the situation with PewDiePie's child. He also talks about how like white people are seen as like zoo exhibits and kids are always like, oh my god. But that won't happen with PewDiePie's child because I'm guessing the PewDiePie child is gonna learn how to speak Japanese. And because of that, they're gonna kind of fit in. Therefore, that's not gonna happen. It usually happens with tourists, like older white men who are like in their 20s. That's when they're like, oh my god. But if it's a child, they're just one of them. And that's not even considering if they go into international school, which he talks about. But then he talks about international school in this way of this privileged bubble, which is just dumb because you're still in Japan, you still learn things. It's just you have like a Western education system rather than an American system, which is amazing. Because if you're a foreigner, you have a place where you can learn foreign stuff instead of learning this Japanese education system, which in my opinion is terrible. But that's a video for another time. And most likely this kid's gonna go to an international school because, I mean, PewDiePie's like a millionaire, so he's probably gonna be able to afford that. But let's say that he does take him to a regular school. That could still be a good thing. Now, the main reason why Japanese people have this view of like Western people and look at them as zoo exhibits is because they simply haven't interacted with them. But if PewDiePie's child goes to a Japanese school, it'll be a good thing because these kids will actually have a white person to look at and have a little bit of like a diversity inside. I just don't see PewDiePie's child being white as a problem. He also brings up issues about them not being able to speak Japanese, which I don't see as a problem. I mean, my parents couldn't speak that Japanese that well, but that was never an issue. I do not remember a single time where that affected me, and while it may have made their lives harder, I mean, he's talking about in a concern of the child, so I don't think that's a valid argument. He also brings up examples of how white people who, even if they're partly Japanese, get discriminated. Like he was talking about how Joey the anime man, when he had his interview with Hajime, which is a YouTuber I used to watch because I grew up there. He's one of the biggest in Japan, and he had an interview video. Basically in the video, he was speaking English the whole time, but towards the middle, he like showed Hajime that he could actually speak Japanese because he wanted to prank him. And then Hajime goes, oh my god, I didn't think someone like you would have been able to speak such perfect English. And then he brings up this point of that's just racist and stuff like that. But let me give you an example, okay? Imagine if some guy, right? This guy who came out of India the whole time was filming a video next to you, right? Was speaking Hindi, right? And then you can barely speak any, so you're trying to talk to him with this broken Hindi, but you can barely speak with him. But then out of nowhere, he just goes, oh yeah, I can speak English, by the way. Would you be surprised? Of course you would. Because this whole time, this guy who you think can't speak English at all, just out of nowhere does. And to Hajime's mind, Joey does not look that Japanese at all. I mean, I'm half Asian, and I can definitely say that Asian people don't think I look Asian, and white people don't think I look white. It's just something that happens. And then he brings up this point about how this girl who lived in the countryside had to dye her hair black, and people were making fun of her. But that's the thing, is that she lived in the countryside. PewDiePie does not live in the countryside. He lives in Tokyo, which is like more diverse. Wow, it's mostly Japanese people, but they see white people on a day-to-day basis, unlike people in the countryside who probably a lot of people have not even seen them once. Overall, this guy is just looking for attention. That's his whole channel. His whole channel is my problem with blank blank blank. Videos about him like talking about why he hates his wife and stuff. This channel is basically just an attention seeking look at me channel, and it's terrible. This video is just an attention seeking video, and obviously he probably doesn't even have that much concerns. His points are invalid. It's one of those, it's those points that like people bring up when a YouTuber is moving to Japan, saying, oh, you gotta get out of here because of this, which I don't see the problem with YouTubers living in Japan, since unlike a normal person moving to Japan, they won't have to face the workforce, so it's pretty easy to live in Japan. Therefore, I don't see the problem with YouTubers living there. But this guy's concerns may be what he feels, but I don't believe so. I think he's just looking for attention, and overall, the video is just terrible. His whole channel's just the same exact things of him talking about why he doesn't like this person and stuff like that. It's terrible.